During World War II, not every survival method was written down, approved or celebrated. Some were so effective, so quietly powerful, that they were passed only by word of mouth, guarded between units, or deliberately omitted from manuals. These weren't weapons or classified devices. They were simple methods for staying alive when systems failed completely, for pulling water where none appeared to exist, for producing light without electricity, for staying hidden, warm and fed when exposure and starvation killed faster than enemy fire. What made these techniques dangerous wasn't violence, it was independence. A soldier who could survive without supply lines was harder to control, harder to predict, and harder to break. So many of these tricks were discouraged, downplayed, or quietly forgotten once the war ended. Yet they worked, repeatedly, across frozen forests, bombed cities, and occupied countryside. What follows are 8 World War II survival techniques that were powerful enough to be kept quiet, and why they still matter now, in a world that depends far more on fragile systems than it likes to admit. Tin can condensation traps pulled drinking water from places marked dry. When wells were destroyed and rivers poisoned, soldiers and civilians learned to extract moisture from air and ground using nothing more than tin cans and cloth. 2 cans were positioned so that moisture could migrate along a damp strip of fabric through capillary action. As the moisture reached cooler metal, it condensed and collected slowly as drinkable water. It took patience, but it worked silently, without digging, smoke, or movement. Today, the same method applies during blackouts or emergencies where surface water is unsafe. It is slow, but it proves water is rarely as absent as it seems. Sardine oil lamps, provided light without the need for electricity or even producing smoke. Cooking oil was never wasted, not a drop. Sardine tins, they became lamps by using cloth wicks dipped in leftover oil or grease. The flame was small, but it was steady, giving off just enough light and a bit of warmth, all with almost no smoke at all. Families relied on them during blackouts, and soldiers used them in bunkers where any firelight could, unfortunately, betray their positions. The principle still holds true today. Any fat can burn slowly when wicked properly, turning, quite literally, food into light when the power disappears. Uniform fabric, believe it or not, was sometimes turned into rope strong enough to carry loads. When rope ran out, soldiers would cut their worn uniforms into strips and braid them tightly into cordage. 3-strand braids, in particular, produced rope capable of securing shelters, hauling supplies, or even lowering equipment. This knowledge wasn't anything exotic, really. It was an old craft, rediscovered under pressure. In prolonged emergencies nowadays, knowing how to convert fabric into functional rope restores a bit of independence when the shops and supply chains, vanish. Flour paste was, interestingly, used as emergency fireproofing. Firestorms could devastate cities faster than bombs alone, you see. Flour mixed with water into a thick paste was brushed onto wood, canvas and fabric to slow ignition and, smother sparks. It didn't stop fire entirely, but it did delay it, buying those precious minutes that could mean escape. In wartime, those minutes were life itself. Even now, the principle applies during wildfires or structural emergencies. Passive preparation, honestly, matters more than reaction. Heated bricks became reusable night-long heat sources. Bricks and stones were heated during the day and wrapped in cloth before nightfall. Placed beneath bedding or along walls, they radiated warmth for hours without fuel or flame. Soldiers learned to store heat, not chase it. Indoors today, this remains one of the safest low-tech heating methods during outages. Heat captured is heat earned. Chalk markings created invisible navigation systems. Powdered chalk was mixed into paste and used to mark hidden trails, supply caches, and danger zones. The marks were subtle, readable only to those who knew what to look for. Under moonlight or angled illumination, they revealed paths others couldn't see. In chaos, memory fails. Systems like this preserved orientation without maps or radios. Even now, silent marking beats digital dependence. Soap-based perimeter alarms provided silent early warning. Bars of soap embedded with metal fragments and connected to trip lines created subtle noise alarms. When disturbed, they produced faint but unmistakable sounds. In environments where silence meant survival, this was enough. The system left no trace and could be dismantled instantly. Today, low-tech perimeter awareness still outperforms complex systems when power is gone. Tree bark broth prevented starvation when food vanished. When nothing else remained, inner bark from pine, birch and elm trees was boiled into thin broth. It wasn't nourishment in abundance, but it provided minerals, warmth and just enough energy to keep the body moving. The act itself mattered. It gave people agency when famine stripped everything else away. This wasn't folklore. It was documented survival. Why this knowledge was allowed to disappear? These methods weren't banned because they were dangerous. They were ignored because they made people less dependent. After the war, industrial systems returned, and survival knowledge that required no infrastructure became inconvenient. But history shows systems fail faster than skills. If you believe knowledge like this should never disappear, if you value history not as nostalgia but as preparation, then you already understand why this channel exists. Subscribe to The Past They Hid. Share this with someone who respects real history and help preserve the knowledge that once kept people alive when the world collapsed around them.